All right. So now let us get started. We're going to talk about building the style. You can go ahead and build any style that you want yourself, based on what you want. I've given you the structure. You can go ahead and build this same style yourself. But for now, we're going to deal with how the functionalities can go. The first thing I need to know is that you need to know what's going to be affected. So looking at this place now, with the flow that I gave to you, what exactly is going to be affected in your application? Hmm? Talk about what is going to be affected in your code in this particular project. What do you want to do? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So what are the things that will like what will the functionality affect? What HTML elements will the functionality affect? One, two, three, four, five. Good. I just want everybody to talk. Everybody's calling. So we are creating a tip amount, a tip calculator rather, which means if anybody tries to like calculate something here and they press the bill, he gets the info of the bill, he gets the info of the rate, and then he listens for an event when you click on the button. Right? Right? Do you know what I'm saying? Where are you lost? Then why didn't you ask a question? Where else is lost? Where else is lost? Where exactly are you at? Not be paying 100% attention. You're not too, okay, you're not like this. Oh, okay. So where exactly have you been arranged with? Okay, just that part. Then you have any other aspect? You understand. Who else is arranged with? Are you scared to say you understand everything everything? It's a wizard, do you understand? Do you understand? Secret. What about you, Mr. Celestine? It's joy. Secret. Okay. So now this is what we're trying to do, Mr. Praise. What we're trying to do is that whenever you come on this application, and then I put first name, let's say I put first name, I put a number, let's say my bill is $10, right? And a waiter or a waitress came to me and said, okay, I'm going to be a waitress, I'm going to take care of everything that you need today. And then they give me an excellent what's the name? Service. I'm going to give them 15% tip. And then giving them 15% tip, I'm going to calculate 15% of what? $10. And add it to the total bill. So I'll know my tip amount, and I know the total amount, and I'm going to pay them. So if I calculate now, what do you have? 15% of $10 what? 1.5. Total amount is not going to be what? 11.5. Automatically calculated. Do you get it now? That is basically what we're trying to do. Now, if it is 10%, it's also going to calculate it. Now, that's 1. If it is what? 5%, that is 0.5, 10.5. So you get it now. This is what we're trying to do. Now, I've gone ahead and created the HTML listing now. Now, when I created the CSS before, because of our time, I'll just go ahead and create the functionality first of all, so you can see how all of these things work. Then go ahead and create the CSS yourself. Give it anything that you want to give it. You can give it any design that you think it is also fine. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, if you want to work on something like this, what exactly is going to get affected? For what I said the last time, what is going to get affected? What do you think is going to get affected in your element? Yeah. You don't need to even talk about. Don't go into the functionality now. Just tell me what will be affected. The elements that will be affected. The HTML elements that will be affected. That is here now. They are saying. For you to be able to do this. Okay. And what about the display result? The result is also going to get affected. But whenever we calculate, we should display a tip amount and a total amount. You understand now? Now, this is how you first of all start working in JavaScript or any project. Define your functionalities. First of all, what do you want to do? Define your functionalities. Take them on a precedent order. This one comes first, before this one, before this one. Now, the first thing you want to do right now is that you want to bring everything inside of HTML, inside of JavaScript. The things that will get affected inside of Java. And how do you do that? You come right here. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to open this. Let me. Now, what exactly? First of all, I need to link my JavaScript. So don't forget the last part of your body. Then your script tab and app.js. Now, in this place, what exactly am I going to bring it inside of it? I'm going to bring in the first thing is going to be what? I'm going to bring in my view, input of view, right? Because it's going to change. Isn't it? It's going to, but we need to get the input from the user. Then I'm going to be bringing in, I'm going to also be adding what? The rate ID. I doubt this is what we're going to be getting. So we should actually have an ID right here. Sorry, just a moment. Yeah. With stuff. All right. So now, so we're going to have an ID here, which is what? Rate. We're going to be getting select, isn't it? And then we're going to be getting what? This particular bill amount. So how do we do that? You go ahead and you're going to bring everything out of Java. And how do you do it? How do you bring all of this out of JavaScript? You mentioned 5 things now that I want to bring this out of JavaScript. First is what? Your view. Second is your rate. Third is your what? Calculate button. Fourth is tip amount. The last is total amount. How will all of those things be affected or given functionality in your JavaScript? What's the first step? All right, so I'm going to get all of them first. So, first things first. First things first, I'm going to get them. So, the first thing I'm going to get right now is going to be our view, which is this ID. So, to get it in this place, I'm going to say const view equals to document dot what? I'm going to use query selector. See? This one. This one. No, why is it this one? This one is basically like a class name of view that is getting your. This one is basically the input. This is the input, the major input with an ID of view. It's the input you are getting. You're not getting the whole thing, just the input. So query selector, and then we're going to what? Get the what? The view. The view is a what? It's an ID, right? So you have to put your hash first and view. Do you get it now? What's the next one? rate. You also need to get the rate, right? So you're going to have const rate equals to document dot query selector, then hash rate. Now, that's just the same thing. As you can see, this is the rate, the ID of what rate. The select button. Now, the next thing I'm going to be getting now is your calculator. I'm going to give this an ID of what calc. Then I'm going to come and I'm going to say const calc btn or calculation btn equals to document or query selector hash calc. Do you understand it now? So button this, your calc button. The next one is going to be what? Result, right? And that's your tip and your total. I'm going to change this to an ID instead. So I don't really like using ID. I don't really like using classes for things like this. I'm going to bring them in. I'm going to say const tip equals to what? Document dot query selector, then what? Tip, hash tip. Similarly, we're going to have what? Total, which is now what? Document dot query selector total. Now, this right here is how you can have all of these things inside of your of your JavaScript. Do you have a question? Yes, I said I don't really like using classes. I like using IDs, especially when it deals with singular entities. Because actually, yes, this is a div, but it's dealing with just one particular element, which is your span tag. So I don't really like using. You can use class if you want, depending on what you want. But I prefer to use my ID. Now, we've gotten everything in our JavaScript, which is a perfect way to start writing your functionality now. But we're not done yet. First of all, let me just take you there. The first thing I wanted to do was get elements in JS. Yeah? Which one? This? Yes. To get elements in JS. That's the first thing I wanted to do. Then the next thing is that we now want to give the button functionality. Now you need to declare everything I want to do first. First of all, we've gotten the elements in JavaScript. Now we're not giving the app. So we can now say giving the app functionality. Now, but you cannot give the app functionality without actually knowing the functionality. The first functionality is that what? You need to get the bill and the rate amount from the user, isn't it? Second functionality is that you need to be able to calculate whatever rate or bill the particular user has imputed. Right? First is what? Get bill. So we're going to get bill amount, bill and rate amount from user. So let me just say get bill and rate amount from user. That's the first thing you need to do. Now, the next thing is that what? You need to be able to, what's the thing I said again? Calculate tip amount, yeah. So calculate tip and total amount of user. Now, this is everything that you want to do. And then you want to display. You understand? Now, this is everything that you want to do. Now, we're able to do the first, which is what? Get elements in JavaScript. So should stop this. Get elements in JavaScript. The next one is what? Giving the app functionality. And what's the first functionality? Get bill and rate amount from user. Now, how do you do that? You need to also know how you are going to do that. So, who can just give me like a quick example or a quick explanation of how I'm going to do that? Not the code, just give me an example of how I'm going to do that. How do you get a a tip amount from user. Don't explain code. Just tell me. So if I say I want to get something from Praise, how am I going to get it? Or I want to get certain inputs, or let's say I'm a final year student now, and there's this survey that they used to do for their project. So let's say now you're not trying to get the survey right now. How exactly are you going to get the survey? How am I going to get the survey from Praise? Don't talk about codes. Just tell me. See, before you do code, I just tell you, writing code is the last thing you do. Before you write, this is a basic project. But before you write code, there's a reason. You think about a lot of things. Okay, what exactly are you going to do? Then that thing I'm going to do, convert it to code. So now, if I'm going to get from, I'm really saying it. If I'm going to get my own survey right now from Praise, how am I going to do it? Anybody can answer. Good. Exactly. Exactly. So if I want to get my survey now, first of all, I have to give it to him, fill it out. So it's going to take the answers, yes, no, or write out certain things I want to write, right? And then it gives me back. Now, two things occurred. First of all, I gave it to him, he filled it, and then what? He gave me back. That's exactly what's happening here. What's happening here is that I've given the user the form. Where is the form? This particular input right here, fill it for me. After you filled it, you will give me back. And what will you give me back? How will you give me back? How will the user give me back? They filled it, right? That's filling. That means they've typed their number at their rate. How will they give me back? Click on calculate. Do you understand? First of all, fill and give me back. Now, bring it into code. How will they give me back? You fill it, you write your rate and your bill, and then you press calculate. And that press calculate is giving me back what? My answer. You understand it now? So now, how exactly are we going to implement that? The way we're going to implement that is by making sure that whenever they give me this form back, I'm going to also what? Display something for them. That means whenever they give me the form, and how will they give me this form back? By pressing calculate. Whenever they press on calculate, something is supposed to happen. That means I'm going to return their tip amount and their total amount. Now, how am I going to make sure that that thing happens? How am I going to make sure that whenever they click on calculate, something happens? How am I going to implement that? I've done that before. Yeah, explain. We've done that. Tip and total. Every variable that we need has been set here. Exactly. You want to try? Continue. Continue. I'm not smiling. Continue. Yeah. No. You're on the right path. Continue. Continue. You're making sense. It might not be the right thing, but you're making sense. So continue. But using strings, of course. No, actually, we're not using strings. You know why we're not using strings? Nobody is empty strings. That's what I smelled. It's not. It doesn't. It makes sense, right? But it's not what we're going to be doing. Why? Because yes, to get to a point, you're going to use empty strings, but we've not gotten to that part. Not even that. We need the beginning. See, it's as if you want to like build a house, and the first thing they are doing is they are buying cement. You don't even have an architect yet. You've not even drawn out the plan. You understand? Just going to get to buying cement or building blocks, all of those things. You get. But for now, what is the first? I just explained to you that you need to press a particular calculate button. Now, how exactly are you going to implement that? Exactly. That's it. So you're supposed to listen for an event that, okay, whenever this particular event happens, this function of what? Getting the user input and returning result is going to occur. Do you get it now? That's what we want. Now, which event are we going to be using? OnClick. Okay. Why don't you want to use JavaScript? Are you scared of JavaScript? Someone said yes. Okay. We're going to be using click event. And why are we using click event? This is very, very easy. See, event is everything you do. Because if I click on this place now, something is expected to happen. As click, on click. On load is that if you refresh your page and your page loads, something happens. On change is that if something changes in your code or in your browser, something happens. But on change is an on change now. We're on 15. It has changed from what? No value to what 15. Maybe I change it, something will come up. That's another select. Now, we will give you an assignment on that. You're able to do that yourself. So, whenever you change this select, it's easiest to show on change. So, whenever you change a particular select, something should alert. You've changed from excellent to good. You change from good to fair. That's on change, meaning a particular element changes. But right now, it is click we are talking about. Whenever you click on what? Click. It should happen now. This is even a lot of this. We'll get to that place. Now, so we have to first of all create. We have to first of all create a particular what's the name? Event listener. So now I cannot say calc ptn dot what add event listener. So I'm going to say event listener, and then I'm going to listen for a what? A click event. So whenever I click, something's going to happen. Now I'm going to use my arrow function. Remember arrow function that I talked about in our last class? Do you remember arrow functions? If you don't want to use it, you can just use function and then this, and it automatically works. So for right now, we're just going to do what? Event listener. All right. So now we've been able to get this. But first of all, this is not everything that we need. Sorry. This is not everything that we need. And why? First of all, how are we going to calculate this? Mathematics. Now, no, we don't need to do codes. If you want to get, so for instance, what this 15% means is that 15% of the what? The total amount. That's of the amount they are supposed to pay, isn't it? If I'm supposed to pay $100, 15% of what? $100. That's going to be my tip amount. So everything was $115. Yes. Now, how do you calculate percentages?
We take the amount of
times 15, right? Now, good. Now, if you divide, so let's say, I'm trying to, let's say this thing is 100 now. Your bill is 100, right? And then you divide it by if you divide 15% by 100, no, not 15%. If you divide 15 by 100, what will you get? 0.015. That means you're going to multiply 0.015 times the tip amount. Let me explain it again. We are saying that once you get percentage, right? Percentage is supposed to be 0.15, right? Good. Sorry. 0.15. Percentage is supposed to be the amount over what? 100 times 15. Or 15 over 100 times the amount. You understand? So it can be two ways. The amount over 100 times 15 or 15 over 100 times the amount. You get it now? So we can have something like that. But right now, we do not have the amount here. That means we only we divide the percentage by what? 100. Then we now multiply it times the tip that will be included by the user. You understand it now? So that's what I'm going to do. So let me explain it again. We don't have the tip amount, do we? No. That means we need to calculate the percentage down first. So that whenever the user inputs the percentage, we will now write a function that automatically multiplies that number, you understand, and our percentage. I'm going to take it again. So we don't know each other before. I just created an app. So I don't know the tip that will be giving your waitress or waiter. So what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to help you calculate that percentage down. That's 15% down. So what exactly does 15% mean? 15% means what? 15 over 100. You understand? So now, I will now help you calculate 15 over 100 down. So I'm not going to multiply it by what the user is going to input. You get it now? But again, there are easy ways to doing these things. What is 15 divided by 100? 0.15, right? What is 10 divided by 100? 0.1. What is 5 divided by 100? 0.05. Right? So, right? 0.05. So, how are we going to do that? Easily, I can come here and give you the value. If it is excellent, I can say 0.15. You understand? If it is 10%, I can give what? 0.1, 0.8, sorry, 0.10 or 0.1, anyone. Oh, that was a mistake on mine. 0.10 or 0.1, anyone. Then if it is what? Fair, 5%, 5 what? 0.05. Now, all I just have to do now is what? Get the values of this and multiply it times what the user is going to be inputting. That's all. Is it clear? Is it clear to everybody? Don't worry, it's not mass. Forget the mass. Forget the mass. So I don't say 15%. If it is 15%, that's 15 divided by 100. 2 divided by 100 is what? 0.15. That's the value of excellent. 10 divided by 100 is what? 0.1. That's the value of what? Good. 5 divided by 100 is what? 0.05. That's the value of what? Fair. So I'm not going to what? Take the value right here in HTML, bring it to JavaScript, and use it to multiply the user input. That's how I'm going to get my tip amount and my total amount. I'm going to take the value right here that I put there, bring it to my JavaScript, and use it to multiply the user input. That's how I'm going to know my tip amount and my total amount. Yeah? That's value, not the function yet. Yes, that's it. Now, value is the value attribute. Okay, I should have even explained this. The value attribute is just an attribute that talks about what a particular input field or form field is or has. So there's sometimes that you come here and you see that the value right here is what? Value is there's nothing there. Meaning that it is expecting naturally every form is like this. Like even if you do not put the value, it automatically detects that yes, you have a value that is empty. Do you understand it now? But right now, if you have a value and I put welcome, I need you to check what's going to happen on the distance. If I come right and I check it out, should have what welcome inside of this place. That's what the value of the form is, but the value of an input. The value is what it entails. But because we do not want to decide for the user, what are we going to do? We're going to make sure that we remove the value. It's going to be empty. But the only thing we want to decide for the user is what? Is this rate. So we set the rate of what's excellent to 0.15. That's the value. The value of good was 0.1 and the value of test was 0.05. Yeah? So if you click on this, you should also excellent. But once you set now calculate button now, it's now going to calculate and give you your tip amount. Is it clear to everybody now? That's it. So moving on. Moving on, I'm going to remove this welcome. This is going to scatter our code if I don't remove it. So moving on right now, what exactly is now the next thing that we're going to do? Now, we have the value here, right? But what did we have the value for the rate in this case. But looking at our rates here, what exactly did we bring into our JavaScript? Constraint equals to documents.query selector rate, right? We have rate inside of it now. Now, let me console.log rate so you can see what I'm saying. If I say console.log rate, now just check the properties of rate and let's see what we have. So checking here now, chart properties of rate, you should have. Now, yes, the select ID. Let me refresh. Now, can you see the properties? Don't forget, I said in JavaScript DOM, we have two types of this. We have the first one is what? Second is what? Properties. What is properties? They are the properties of the HTML element. Everybody don't forget again. I still said it today. Properties of the HTML elements. Now, we have all of these things. So, autocomplete, autofill, they're all properties of that HTML element. Now, I need you to check something. It says children. There's children. That's how many HTML. That's 4 HTML collections. That's 4 options that we have. Now, I need you to come here and check somewhere. So you should see value right here. So let me show you what I'm saying. Now, can you see value here? Right? Now, what exactly this is saying? What exactly this is saying that this is the value of what? Of this particular select button. That's the select, this select, not select button, select view. Right? Now, what this also means is that this particular rate here, that you are seeing in this place, is every single thing that is here. So, is every single thing that is here. But do you need all this to build your application? Do you need all these properties to build your application? What exactly do you need? Numbers, but we need something that we've been talking about it. We need the value. And the value is part of what? The properties of the select. Isn't it? That means we don't necessarily need all the rates. We just need the value of what? Of the rates. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm going to come again. We set the value. How many values? 3 values. Excellent 0.15, good 0.1, fair 0.05, right? Then I console.log rate, and I showed you all of the properties of rate. Under the properties of rate, what do you have? You have values and other things, right? And I'm telling you that what exactly is we are going to use in getting the tip amount and the total amount is the value of what? Of this select, and then the value that what? The user input. So exactly what exactly do we need? Just the values. So if the user press 10, what's going to be 10 here? The 10 is going to be what? Value. So if I come here and I press 10, that's what? Value. If I come right here and I say good, that's what? Value. Value is like what? The major input right there. Do you understand now? So what exactly we need is not the total rate card or the total rate element. We just need the what? The rate value and then the bill value. Do you get it now? But in this place, what exactly we are getting here is what? Is the total rate value and then the bill value. So is the total rate and then the total bill, including the value. So we are getting every single property. But we don't need all the properties. All we need is what? The value. How are we going to get the value? I will give you an example. This is an object. So how are we going to get the value right here? The select is this is an object. The bill amount is an object. So if they are an object and they have a value property, how are you going to select their value? Non-objects. How are you going to select their value? I'm going to ask you again. The select element is an object. The bill amount is an object. And among their properties, you have what? Value. How exactly are you going to get their value? Anyone, just say what comes to your mind. Select dot what? Why using select again? In your JavaScript, what is select now? Rate. Seed. ID of rate. That means your select is now known as what? Rate. Okay, continue. Rate dot what?
The value of any of the
Rate of any of the value, right? All right. What exactly is the user going to write? Exactly. So it's only what? Rate dot value, bill dot value. Again, the whole rate is an object. The whole bill is an object. How do you get properties of objects? I explained it before when we were doing objects. We were doing first name, last name. How did you get properties of first name? The object name dot okay. So you were saying something. You were asking a question. So you said, how will I know the one, right? Now this is how you know the one. This is a very important question. Everybody should listen up. Now, inside of which section are your options located? Select. Select has an idea of what? Rate. You are still right. Rate. Now, I'm not saying rate dot value, which means that whatever value was selected in the option is going to be my answer. You understand it now? So, right, instead of getting just rate, I'm not going to say rate dot what value. Then, similarly, I'm going to get bill dot what value, because whenever the user presses, the number in the input, I should also get the value. Now, this is just the two things that I need. And now, these two things, I'm going to be using them as local scopes and not global scope. I've been saying I will talk about hoisting. So one of these days I'll talk about hoisting. Okay, I cannot finish this today, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about hoisting right now, so you can understand what hoisting is. I hope everybody is here, so I can talk about it. Hoisting. Okay. Oh. Sorry, I have not shared again. Thank you very much for telling me. Can I see it now? All right, good. So now, what exactly is hoisting? I'm going to use definition here, and then I'm going to explain it to you. So when you say hoisting, what is JavaScript? Now, let me read this for you. Hoisting in JavaScript is a behavior hoisting in JavaScript is a behavior where declaration of variables, functions, and classes are conceptually moved to the top of their containing scope during the compilation phase, before the code is executed. Now, before I talk about hoisting, I'm going to talk about scope. I think I've talked about scope before. Have I? Global scope, local scope, function scope. I've not. Okay. So let's talk about scope. Now, first of all, we'll talk about local scope. We'll talk about function scope. And then we'll talk about what? Global scope. Now, what exactly we do by, I've talked about this before, with let and var. I just remembered. But let me just give an explanation. When we talk about global scope, we are talking about a particular scope or variable that is accessible throughout your code. So you can use it for numerous functions. You can have multiple functions, and then you can have that particular scope in it. You understand what I'm saying? I know what I'm saying. This particular element here, this particular variable here, they are what? Global scope. Why are they global scope? Because I can use inside of this function here. Inside of this function here, right? I can go ahead and create another function and say function and say function, right? As a function new function. Right? And then I can access tip in this place. Dot inner HTML. You understand? I can still access it in this place. Now, what this means is that what? This particular tip here is a global scope. Meaning that I can access it here. I can also still go ahead and access it in this particular function. These are two separate functions. Hope you know that. Is everybody here, please? These are two separate functions. Hope you know. This one and this one are two separate functions. Hope you know. Why are they two separate functions? This one is talking about something else. This one is another word. In another talking about something else. They are two separate functions. But I am using the same variable name in both of them. This tip right here that has been declared outside of it. This tip, this cap button, and this TOT are all known as what? Global scope. Global variables. Meaning that they can be accessed anywhere inside of the code. But now let us say I try to put this inside of this place, this view now. And I put this view inside of this place. Now, as you can see, this is now a variable that is only meant for what? This particular calc button function. But now let us try and access it here and let us see. So if I say view, right, equals to what? Let's say equals to document the query selector right here. Right? And I say console.log view. Let's say view. Right? Now let me declare my function and I say new function. Right, good. Now let us check what we have out and let's see the errors that is going to print out to the console. Now, as you can see, first of all, are you seeing anything here? That's it. Good. Are you seeing? Okay, sorry. Let me X. X. So let's say function, and let's say calculate it. Good. Good. Now this is it. This is what I'm saying. So let me print this inside of this function. Now let us try it out. Now let us see what we have. Now looking at this now, are you seeing anything here? No. And why are you not seeing anything here? You're not seeing anything here because this function right here, this particular variable right here, is a what? What is it? It's a local variable. It's a local scope, a function scope. It cannot be accessed globally. Is it clear to you? Because that's what it is. Then we have local scope and we have global scope. Anyone that you see that is inside of a block of code or a function is a local scope. Anyone that is outside of a function that you know that any other function can access, like this one is outside of any function, this is global. It's accessible to anybody. You understand it now? That is what your global and local variable mean. You understand? Now, why did I just show you this? I just showed you this now so that I can explain certain things for you. Okay, let me just delete this. I hope everybody understands what scope are now. Do you understand scope? Is it clear to you? Everybody? All right. So we can move on now. Now I'm going to explain to you why exactly I had to explain this first. So now, function scope is, now I like to call my own function scope my local scope. Why? Because function scope means that you can only access that particular block of code in that function. You understand? It can only be accessed, the value can only be accessed in that function, except to take the function into another function. You understand? So that's function scope. But when it comes to local scope, the real local scope. Now, for instance, if I'm using if, let me just give a last example. If I say if, so let's say true. So if true, so we can say let x equals to 5, right? And so let's say console of x. So now in this place, x equals to 5. Now it is true. It's always the true. We already said if true. Now if you check out this if, okay, what do you have? You have 5. Now let us try and access x outside of this place. If I say console.log x again, console.log x right here. Now let us check it out and let's see what we have. What is it saying? X is not defined. What exactly is it telling you? It is telling you that this is the what? This is a local scope. X can only be accessed within the scope it was defined. But now function scope is saying that you can actually still access another variable in another function, except, but the only way you can access it is if you reference that function in the new function. Just like I showed you before with set timer in our last class and something. Now you actually set something in the set timer, but you referenced it in the previous function. You understand? And that is how scopes like that can work. But global scope is saying you don't have to reference it. As long as you declare it outside, every single thing is going to work. So that's global scope, that's function scope, and that's local scope. Now, sometimes I like to call my own function scope local scope because somehow it is still local, but you can just switch it up and make it accessible to other functions. But that's what scope is. Scope is saying that certain variables will be declared globally, certain variables will be declared locally, and certain variables will be declared within functions. You just need to know where to declare them. You have a question? Do you remember when we talked about set timeout in our last class? Now, what did we do with the set timeout? Whenever something, after 5 seconds, something disappears. Now, in the set timeout, did you set a particular variable? We set a variable that if something happens, this particular variable should. Now, we now call that particular set timeout in another function, which was in the prompt function. If you remember, we call it another function. Now, that variable in the set timeout is still taken in the new function, but not directly. It's only being referenced. That's what a function scope. Function scope is saying that whenever a variable is defined within a function, right, it can only be accessible in that function, except you reference that function in another function. We'll get there, and I'm going to explain. But I just want you to understand what it is. Global scope, globally, local scope, only that particular scope. Then function scope is within the function. Do you have a question? No, we cannot use local scope in this function because we only said x equals what? If block. So if you try to access x here and you've not set another value of x, it is not going to work because x is what? Local. It has to be what? Global for it to work. Now that is what your scope means. Now why exactly did I say this? First of all, I said I want to make this local in the sense that what I want to make this only accessible to my function right here. You understand? Now you can make it global, it's fine. But global scopes are not exactly the best way to have, they're not exactly the best way to define your variables. Why? Because there are some things that you want to be very, very strict about. You don't want other aspects of your code to have access to it. So you want to be very, very strict with how you define all of these variables. So I'm going to make it what? Local, only accessible to this particular function. Is it clear to you now? Now, after doing that, we now want to make sure that we are able to perform this mathematical operation. And what is the mathematical operation? How exactly are we going to do this? So I'm going to ask a question now. I might just end the class here because I'm really looking at everybody's face. I think you're already dozing off. So I'm going to give us time to write this code. Just write this first of all. Then I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question first. I'm going to end the class here. So how can we implement something like this? I like it when we think about things. Don't just listen to me in class. Think also. That's why I'm a programmer. How exactly can we implement something like this? If a particular user includes this, we want certain things to happen, right? We want this particular user's values to match each other and then multiply to give you what the tip amount and the total amount. How exactly will you implement the logic? Okay, this is a function. We're already in the function. So am I also to come here and say tip I cannot say tip amount equals to bill times rate, Abby? I'm not saying you should tell me where to write. I'm saying just give me how am I going to do it? Just tell me how I'm going to do it. What exactly? With everything I'm explaining in JavaScript now. Okay.
So value times.
Why you creating something to the console when you want to affect the DOM?
So I think
The reason why I was using console.log before was just for you to see the value of what you are doing. Console.log, when I use console.log.rate now equals to rate, now what did I do? I just wanted to print out the properties. I wasn't really interested in affecting or having any effect on the HTML. Whenever you want to have direct effect on your HTML, you use your DOM, methods and what? Properties. Those are the two things you use. Methods and what? Properties. Console.log is not even needed here. So how exactly am I going to affect my properties here? You use inner text. Yes, you use inner text, but not yet. But how are we going to do it? You are saying something. So, first of all, I want, whenever my user inputs something, I want impute something. I want the value to be multiplied by the rate value that my user would give. And then I want my tip amount and my total amount to be printed out. How will I do that? Exactly. 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 Why are you using if and else statement? Let me just tell you. Let me tell you why. If user inputs something, take whatever was inputted and what? Calculate. Do you understand it now? Because the conditional statement, user might not input anything. And user might also what input anything. It has to be like an action. If a user does this, then give me back what this particular result. Do you understand it now? That is what each statements are. Each statement about conditional statement, that's what they say control flow. To get certain interactions from users. Do you get it now? That's why I use if and else statement. Now, but we will not just go ahead and use if and else statement. We also need to what, put some things into check. Now, for instance, let me show you some things now. Let's check this out. If I include letter right here and I press calculate, what's going to tell me? Please enter a number. An error. Now, if I now put my number and I press, okay, now let's refresh. My number and I press calculate. It's not going to answer. As you can see, I'm not giving any tip. It calculated. But now, let's now say I now put rate, calculate. Please enter bill and rate service. That's another word, another error. Do you get it now? Now, how are we going to do this? We're going to do this by using an if statement. If user does not input anything, bring an error. Else, if user now puts something that is not a number, also give me an error. Do you get it now? Now, else, if user now like gives you the right parameters, that is the only time you have to what, bring out a result. Can you see why I'm using if and else statement now? Because we have a lot of control flow statements that we are going to put, a lot of conditions that we have to put into consideration. JavaScript, like I said, and I will always say, it's not hard. All you just have to do is what? Don't think about code first. Think about English first. No math, English. You're not doing, how many maths have you done now? No maths, now just divide percentage. No math. Think about English. If you can interpret any task in English, you can do anything. That's what I'm always saying. Although if you are not going back on our classes, we won't do it. Always go back on our classes and make sure you understand those things. Then interpret whatever task you are given in English. I'm going to stop the class here because I need to give everybody rest now.